everyone, this is Amanda at Amanda's Booktopia. If you're new here, welcome, and if not, welcome back. And today, I'm going to go over all the books that I read in February. Some of them were physical. I think, was there an audio for February? I don't remember. I know there was plenty of ebooks. I read a lot of ebooks, which is good. But I also do have some physical books here. And I decided to go in order of how I read them. So we're going to start with the first book that I read, which was my own book club book, Fiction Falls, for February, which was Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. Rorich. And I actually really enjoyed this one more than I thought I would. And it wasn't quite a 5-star. It wasn't quite there. Because it had some issues with the main male character. And maybe a couple of other things here and there. But I didn't have too much of an issue with it. We did have our discussion for our book club on Clint's channel for this. And everybody except for me did not like this book. But I had a decent time, and it wasn't terrible in my opinion. I mean, after the discussion, I went from a 4-star to like a 3.5. But it's still pretty close to a 4, so I figured I'd just, round in a GoodReads to a 4. But overall, I had a fun time. I have the second book. I do hopefully plan on reading that in March to continue the series. So, it was a fun time. And I will definitely at least try the other books. And then the second book I read after Lady of Darkness was Gothicana by Runex. This was a surprise, to be honest. I didn't realize it was going to be the way that it was. I knew it was dark, and I expected that. But it wasn't as dark as I thought it was going to go. I thought it was going to be a lot darker than it actually was. But it was still a fun story. I had a good time. It wasn't a 5-star for me, unfortunately, because I didn't get that feeling from this book. But it wasn't bad by any means, and I would still read. I know Runex is coming out with Enigma. I think it's set in the same world, if I'm not mistaken, but different characters. So I will try Enigma. This was still a fun read. I still had a good time with it. I just expected it to be darker than it actually was. And for that reason is why this was a 4-star. However, I will read more from Runex. For sure. And then the next book I read in February was Keep Me by Sarah Kate. And wow, was this a great book. This was so close to a 5-star. I ended up giving it 4.75. I didn't quite have the 5-star feeling, but it was so close. I really enjoyed this book, and Sarah Kate is such a fun author. I enjoy her writing. I read praise by her. Really enjoyed that. And I'm glad I got this one, because this one was so good. I didn't realize there was mental health representation in this also. And I really had a fun time. But I do definitely still recommend this book if you haven't read it. Because even it says there's supposed to be some BDSM elements in it. And I mean, there was kind of sort of there, but it wasn't really as much of that element in it that I was hoping it was going to have. But it was still so much fun. I love this story. And I love Sylvie. She's a great character. And I love Killian. Just the two of them, I just really love them together. And I highly recommend reading this if you haven't read it yet. It was so much fun, and it just was great, and I loved it. It was so close to a 5. Just barely there. And then the next book that I ended up picking up was Not the Girl You Marry by Andy J. Christopher. This was a gift, and I'm glad I picked it up because it was very similar to that movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. It was like a retelling of sorts. So it was similar in a lot of ways. And I did have a really fun time with it. It just wasn't like a 5-star, but I did really enjoy the story. So it was a solid 4 stars. I would definitely read more from this author. Probably not anytime soon, but it was still fun. And I would definitely, pick up another book from this author again at some point. And then the next book I picked up was Always Mine by Laura Pavlov. This also has the sprayed edges on it. And I almost, I was thinking of DNFing at first, but I pushed through. And I'm really glad that I did. Because I ended up really enjoying it in the end. I just felt like the beginning was very slice of life, I guess you could say. It was very Hallmarky in the beginning. And sometimes I don't mind Hallmark stuff, but this one was a little too Hallmarky at first. But then some more stuff happened later on in the book that made me tear up, and because of the letter that she gets. There were some really good moments in this book. So I almost gave it a 3 until like the last third, and that upped it to a 4 for me. And I do want to continue the series. I want to know the other sisters and like what and how their books go. I'm definitely interested in continuing because I did buy the second book of the series, which is Evermine. So I will continue. This was like almost a 3. I'm glad that I pushed through because it was very, very Hallmarky. But if you don't mind a Hallmark story, then this might be the one for you. But there was also definitely some moments where it definitely got me. So that's why it ended up being a 4-star. And I will continue the series since I own the second one. So it was fun. I will definitely read more. And then the next book we've got that I also read was Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. I am on my Elsie Silver journey and I am loving it. This one was definitely 5 stars. Absolutely, positively 5 stars. I love Billy. I love Vaughn. The two of them together were like chef's kiss. I absolutely adore this story. Billy is hilarious. I laughed at every moment where she stood up. She was so herself. And so she never backed down. Not for one thing. And she stood up for what she believed in. And she's my favorite female heroine from Elsie Silver so far. And that says a lot. And I really, really love this story. This is probably my favorite after Reckless. It was that good. So, so, so good. It kind of is sort of enemies to lovers. Not quite. It wasn't really enemies to lovers, but it kind of was, if that makes any sense. I absolutely love the story. And I will be reading more Elsie Silver. This was addicting. I did not want to put this one down. 5-star, absolutely. And then the next book that I ended up picking up after that, I decided to keep going on the Elsie Silver train. I picked up a photo finish. And I don't know if it was me. It might have been, I think this was a me thing and not the book thing. It took me a while to get through this one. Even though this is actually shorter than Off to the Races. Off to the Races is a little bit more chunkier than a photo finish. But it took me a lot longer to get through this one. Maybe I just wasn't vibing with it. I don't know. Maybe later down the line, if I do a reread on it, my thoughts will change. But it just took me so long to get through, even though it's a short book. I mean, so my rating right now is at a 3.5. Because I still like some of the characters. There were times I was just not a fan of Violet. And I wish she was more like Billy. I know you don't want to be too similar to other characters, but I just felt like, I don't know if it was Violet or if it was me. I just had some issues with Violet. I don't know why. But I loved Cole in this, and that's the reason why I gave it a 3.5. Maybe later in life, if I read it again, my thoughts will be different. But for right now, I'm on a 3.5. It was still fun. It wasn't bad. It took me a while. It took me like almost a week. And it's not that long of a book. But I will be continuing the series because I own the rest of it now. And I want to continue my LC Silver journey. So I will be doing that at some point. And then after a photo finish, I picked up the second book in the Zodiac Academy series. I'm having such a fun time with this series. The first book was a 5-star. This one was so close to a 5-star, but not quite. I mean, I still had so much fun in this one. Like, there's stuff in this that we don't get in the first book, which I thought was great. I absolutely love these sisters, the twins. It was a blast, and I had so much fun. I really want to continue the rest of the series. The third book is on my books I really want wish list, because I definitely want to see where the series goes. And the way this ended, I'm like, I need to get the next book. But this wasn't quite a 5-star like the first one, but still pretty close. I mean, this one was a 4-star. However, I really want to continue the series and see what else happens with these characters, because I ate a sub. I read this in like a day and a half. It was during when the girls were doing their 24-hour challenge, and it was so fun. And I cannot wait to continue the series for sure. And then the next one that I picked up was Fragile Sanctuary by Catherine Cowles. And this one also gave me some Hallmarky type feels. But because I really, really loved Whispers of You by Catherine Cowles, and I was hoping this would be like just like that, if not better. And unfortunately, it quite wasn't at the level of Whispers of You for me, but I still really enjoyed it. Like, it wasn't a bad book. It just, I didn't have the same feelings with this one like I did with Whispers of You. But I still really had a good time, so. And it wasn't bad. Like, I didn't hate it. I just was, I mean, it was a fun story. Just didn't have that 5-star impact. So it was a 4-star. But I will continue reading more of Catherine Cowles because I really want to read more of her backlist. So at some point I will be continuing the Whispers of You series, because that's the one I really want to focus on. Because that first one, Whispers of You, was amazing, and I need to continue that series. And then next I picked up Perfect Strangers by J.T. Geisinger. I have been really loving this author so much. This one was not quite at the level as some of her other books, though. This one was a toughie. It started out good and promising, and then it took turns that I did not like. It was much later in the book when it happened. Honestly, the whole thing was like a fever dream, to be honest. It wasn't quite what I wanted it to be, which is sad. Let me tell you what I wrote on my GoodReads review. It says, I love JT and her writing, but for me this one wasn't a hit. I was loving it at first, but stuff happened that I wasn't a fan of, which frustrated me. Which is what I just told you guys. And I didn't like the plot twist near the end, and I was super confused. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. Unfortunately, this is my least favorite of her books so far that I've read. So, unfortunately, it just wasn't it for me. I mean, it started out interesting. Like, I was really having fun until, like, the plot twist near the end. I'm like, no, you can't do this to me. So, unfortunately, it was a 3-star because of that. But that's okay. I'm still going to read more of her books because besides this one, I love her other ones that I've read so far. But then after that, I picked up another ebook, Amid Clouds and Bones by Ella Fields. This one is a fantasy romance that very much reminded me of The Cruel Prince, and I love the Cruel Prince series, The Folk of the Air by Holly Black. That's a great series, and this one definitely reminded me of it. And I really had a great time. However, even though it is a standalone, I kind of wish there was another book because I would love for the author to explore this world a little bit more. And I just felt like everything wrapped up so quickly. I felt like if we had another book, we could do more with it. But it was still so much fun, so it was an easy 4 stars. And I will read more from this author, since I have another book from her that I do want to read. And then I continued a J.T. Geisinger role and picked up Melt for You, which is the second book in the Slow Burn series by her. Absolutely loved Melt for You. It is one of my absolute favorites of hers, besides Burn for You. I think I read Burn for You back in January. That Burn for You was outstanding. Melt for You, also outstanding. However, I did have some triggering moments in Melt for You. It was so close, so close to a 5-star. But some of the stuff that Joellen went through with her parents was very triggering to me, because some of the stuff that they said reminded me of stuff that I'm going through. And because of how triggering that was for me, it couldn't be quite a 5-star. But I still really love the story otherwise, and so it was definitely a 4.5. It was so close to a 5. I just wish there wasn't that issue with her parents. Some of the stuff that they said to her just reminded me, just hit too close to home for me. And that's the reason why it was so close to a 5-star. It is, if it just didn't hit so close, it would have been. But it was a 4.5, so it was still fun. And then I listened to an audiobook for the month of February. It was Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. It's my first Lynn Painter book. I've never read anything from Lynn Painter before. And unfortunately, Better Than the Movies did not hit for me. The first half, I felt the main character was so selfish and so self-centered that I could not compute in my head. And there was one scene from the party where I nearly lost my own stomach because I was listening to the audio, and it was disgusting. I thought I was going to be sick. So, just that first half, I had such a hard time with. The second half was a little bit better because I understood a little bit more of where she was coming from, like what happened with her mom. However, I still had issues overall, and it just didn't really hit for me, unfortunately. Even though the second half was a little bit better than the first half, I don't think Lynn Painter is quite the author for me. But I still gave it 3 stars. It wasn't terrible. I just could not connect. I love YA books, but YA romance by itself, I just don't connect to that anymore because of where I'm at in my life now. I'm almost 35. These characters are like in high school. So for that reason, I think it is a reason why I just didn't love it. But it's okay. It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't great. It's hard to describe. But, it all worked out eventually. 3 stars isn't too bad of a rating, at least. And then I went to my next ebook, which was Ache for You by J.T. Geisinger, also the 3rd book in the Slow Burn series. This one, probably one of my favorites of the series as well. This one's right up there with Burn for You. Ache for You was amazing. I loved the whole fashion aspect. I love the main characters in this one. I was laughing so much, out loud, as I was reading this. And, I just adore the 2 of them together. And I wish we had another book with just the 2 of them because, I just love them so much. And I highly recommend this series. the Slow Burn series by J.T. Geisinger. They're all great in their own individual way. The first one, probably my absolute favorite, but Ache for You, the third one, is my second favorite. And it's so, so good. So if you want a good slow burn romance, these books are for you. And I just loved it. So definitely, at least we got some couple of 5 stars in here, which is great. And then I picked up Funny Story by Emily Henry. This was also, I think, part of my 13 Books from 13 Friends challenge. And I understand why people like it, but I didn't understand the whole reason for loving it as much as people are. Like, not that I didn't like the book. I did really enjoy the story. However, I was waiting for the plot twist that everyone was talking about to happen, and I didn't see it. I didn't feel the impact like everybody else has. I don't know if I'm just jaded when it comes to romance. I don't know. I mean, I love a good romance, don't get me wrong. I don't know. People rave about Emily Henry, and this one in particular. It's not that I didn't like the book, because I did enjoy it. I mean, it was a 4-star. It's just, I don't understand why people are giving it 5 stars. If that makes any sense. I mean, it was good. I had a fun time with the story. It's just, I didn't have the same impact as everybody did. Not sure why that is. But it was still a fun story overall. It was 4 stars. Just not quite the 5-star that I wanted it to be, because everyone's loving Emily Henry these days. I don't know if I want to pick up another Emily Henry book anytime soon. But maybe eventually I'll try another one of hers, because she's extremely popular. I mean, a couple of her books are being made into movies. So maybe eventually I will try. She's just not a favorite author for me right now, so maybe eventually. But it was still a 4-star book. And then the next book I read on my Kindle as an ebook as well. This one is probably one of my favorites of the month as well. This is Give Me a Reason by A.L. Jackson. This one was everything I love in a romance. Single dad, an innocent woman who decides to take a job in this man's club to help her dad save his school. Everything I love in a romance. I love the single dad trope so much. It's one of my favorite tropes in romance. And like, the two of them together were like fireworks. I absolutely love this book so much. I think more people should be reading it, in all honesty. A.L. Jackson, I feel like, is an underrated author that hardly anybody talks about, but I think more people should. And Eden and Trent are like some of my favorite characters that I've read from in quite a long time. And I honestly couldn't get enough of this book. So I need to continue the series for obvious reasons, because it was a 5-star. I need to continue the series. So very soon, hopefully. If not this month, maybe next month, we will see. But I definitely want to continue, because this book was absolutely everything. 5 stars, Trent and Eden, some of my favorite characters. I cannot wait to read more from this series and see all the books from the brothers get all their love interests in the end. I mean, I just loved it so much. And I think more people should be reading from A.L. Jackson. I highly recommend. And then the next ebook I picked up was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong. This was for the mental health prompt that I did for Rom-Com Swoonathon. I could have done a couple of others that I didn't realize that I could have used. But I'm glad I finally tried this one, because this one's been really popular for quite a while. And this is my first time reading from this author. And I did really enjoy the autism aspect of it. because you don't see that in books, hardly ever. So I was really glad to see that and see that representation, because I have a lot of friends with autism. In the community that I live is people or for disabilities live independently. And so I have a lot of friends here that are autistic, and it reminded me so much of them. And so that's probably why I enjoyed it as much as I did. However, I didn't get the 5-star feeling that I wanted it to. But it was still a really fun story, so it was easily a 4-star. I will continue the series at some point, but it's not a priority right now. However, I did really enjoy the story. So I will read more from this author at some point. And then not the last, but the next 2 books are part of a series that my fiance Ray got for me because they were so cheap on Amazon. And he started the series, and I already read the first book, so he got me the last 2 so I could binge read the rest with him, because he was listening to it on audio. So we have Amari and the Great Game, and Amari and the Despicable Wonders. This series is something. I really did enjoy it overall. I think the second one, Amari and the Great Game, is my favorite in the series, because this one was a 4.5. This one was more of a 4. Overall, even though I had a good time with the series, I felt at times, especially in this 3rd book, it was too on the nose to Harry Potter. I felt like I was reading Harry Potter Look for the Horcruxes all over again in this one, which is probably why I didn't love it as much as this one. This one reminded me of the Triwizard Tournament a little bit, and I love books with trials in it, so this is probably why I enjoyed this one the most out of all of the books. I mean, overall, I had a fun time. I mean, this is 4.5, this is 4. I just felt at times it was way too on the nose to Harry Potter. I felt like I was rereading Harry Potter all over again in a lot of ways. And to be honest, there were times that I did not like Amari and some of the stuff that she did. In Harry Potter, I feel like he didn't have a choice. He was thrown into it. And he just kind of tried to do his best to stay out of trouble, even though he couldn't quite stay out of trouble. It wasn't really his fault, because everything that happened to him all started before he was even born. However, Amari is not like that. She was not born into this at all. And some of the choices that she made, I felt were a little bit childish. And I felt like she should have listened to people who were telling her to do what her elders, they were telling her to do the things that they thought was best for her, which she should have done. She did not have to fight this war on her own. I mean, I know she had friends that helped, but I felt like if she really listened to the people older than her, she wasn't exactly mature enough to take on the responsibilities that she did, and I felt like she should have listened to the people older than her that were telling her otherwise. And that's my only gripe with this series. It was not I flew through these books. I mean, it was a fun time. It was just not my favorite. I was kind of sad how on the nose it was to Harry Potter, and that was my biggest thing, besides her decision making. But overall, it was okay. So, at least I finished the series. And then the last book that I read was a heck of a banner. This was also a 5-star. Everyone needs to read this book. And this is The Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. If you want a good dragon book that takes place in the 1920s, you absolutely have to read this book. It was so good. I was addicted from the get-go. What happened, well, I'm not going to reveal any spoilers in this, but the main premise is that this girl finds out her parents were rebels, and she wasn't aware of it, and she ends up doing something that paints her as a rebel. So she has to go she gets recruited into this school for people with like criminal backgrounds to help decipher the language of these dragons, which is basically like the title of the book. But they're fighting a war with dragons, and there's and she needs to help her. She's told that she has to help one side of the war, so she has to figure out what these dragons are saying through this special device that they're using. And there's a bit of a romance while she's there at the same time, and oh my god, it is such an amazing book. I cried at the end, and because of that ending, I'm sure there's going to be another book. There has to be. There's no way it could just end that way. So I cannot wait for the sequel for whenever it comes out. I will definitely be buying the ebook for sure, because I borrowed this on Libby originally, and I'm so glad that I did. It's an amazing story with dragons, and if you liked Fourth Wing, I feel like you're going to love A Language of Dragons. So definitely check it out if you haven't, because I highly, highly, highly recommend. One of my favorite books of the month for sure. And that was the last book I read in February. This was all the books that I've read. I hope you enjoy listening and hearing all my thoughts on all of these books. More of them ebooks than actual physical books, but still books nonetheless. And I had such a fun time. I had a lot of great books in the month of February. Some not so good ones. But it all worked out in the end. So we got some heavy hitters in there. Have you read any of these books? If you have, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. If you made it this far into the video, give me a... How about you give me lightning, if there's a lightning emoji. Because of this book. Looks like there's lightning on the cover. Or if you can't find lightning, give me a cloud emoji, because I'm certain there's a cloud emoji. And thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a huge thumbs up. If you want to see more bookish content from me, make sure you smash the subscribe button down below, and I will see you all on the next one.